3 weeks had passed since Earth withdrew from the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was learning what it meant to lose humanity. Suji Yoon stood in the engineering bay of Trading Station Epsilon, watching the reactor temperature climb into dangerous levels. She was a short woman with oil stains on her hands and exhaustion in her eyes. For 5 years she had kept this station running, fixing problems that the alien engineers either could not see or could not solve. Now she was leaving, and the station was dying. "Please," the station master begged. He was a tall insectoid creature named Krath, his multiple arms gesturing frantically. "Just show my engineers how to stabilize the core. I will pay you anything. Triple your salary. 10 times your salary." Suji shook her head. She had already packed her tools into a worn bag slung over her shoulder. "I cannot. Earth has recalled all personnel. I have to go." "Then write down the instructions," Krath pleaded. "Leave us a manual. Something." "The reactor has 17 different safety protocols that change based on load requirements," Suji explained patiently. She had explained this many times before, but the alien engineers never quite understood. "It needs constant adjustment. You cannot just follow instructions. You need to understand the principles. Then teach us the principles." Suji looked at him with something like pity. "I tried. For 5 years I tried. Your engineers did not want to learn. They wanted me to do the work while they took credit. Remember when I asked to train them properly? You said it was too expensive. You said humans were workers, not teachers." Krath's mandibles clicked together nervously. He did remember. He remembered many things differently now. "If you leave, the station will fail," he said quietly. 3,000 beings live here. Where will they go?" "I do not know," Suji replied honestly. "But I cannot stay. My people need me home." She walked toward the docking bay. Behind her, alarm klaxons began to wail as another system failed. She did not look back. In a medical facility halfway across the galaxy, Dr. Dayan's song was having a similar conversation. She stood in the intensive care ward, surrounded by patients from a dozen different species. Some had tentacles, some had scales, some breathed different atmospheres and needed special tanks. The hospital director, a bird-like creature with blue feathers, blocked her path. "You cannot abandon these patients. You took an oath." Dayan adjusted her medical bag on her shoulder. "I took an oath to do no harm. I have trained your staff as much as they would allow. I have written detailed care plans for every patient. But I am not abandoning them. I am following my government's orders to return home." "Your training is insufficient," the director squawked. "These are complex cases. Hybrid biology, cross-species infections. Your people are the only ones who understand this." "We understand it because we studied," Dayan said firmly. "We asked questions. We ran experiments. We shared our data, but whenever we tried to publish jointly with alien doctors, our names were removed from the papers. When we requested research grants, we were denied. You wanted our knowledge, but you did not want to treat us as equals." The director's feathers ruffled in agitation. "This is about politics. Patients should not suffer for political games." "I agree," Dayan said, "which is why the council should have treated Earth better." She left the hospital. As she walked through the corridors, nurses called out to her, asking questions, begging her to stay. She answered what she could, but did not stop walking. At the spaceport, she met Jinwoo Nam, a cargo pilot who had been hauling medical supplies between systems. He grinned when he saw her. "Dr. Song, ready to go home?" "More than ready," Dayan admitted. "You?" "Very ready," Jinwoo replied. "These last few weeks have been interesting. Nobody wants to pay humans anymore since they think we are leaving anyway. But everyone suddenly wants to hire us because their stuff does not work. I have been turning down jobs all week." They boarded the transport ship with 24 other humans. Everyone looked tired but relieved. They were going home. On the bridge of the transport, Sora Han was managing communications. She was young, barely 25, but she had a gift for understanding alien languages and signals. Before Earth withdrew, she had been helping coordinate messages across 3 sectors. Now the communication networks were falling apart, and she was watching it happen in real time. "The relay in Sector 12 just went offline," she reported. "That is the 18th one today." The captain nodded grimly. "Any distress calls we need to worry about?" Sora checked her screens. "Hundreds. But none in our flight path and none are our responsibility anymore." It felt strange to say that. For years, human ships had responded to every distress call, regardless of which species sent it. Humans had a reputation for being helpful, sometimes annoyingly so. Now they were ignoring calls for help and heading home. I almost feel bad, Sora admitted quietly. Do not, an older engineer sitting nearby said. His name was Tewu and he had gray hair and steady hands. I spent 10 years maintaining the navigation beacons in the Outer Rim. Pirates avoided those areas because the beacons helped patrol ships respond quickly. You know how many times the Council thanked us? 0. You know how many times they tried to pay us properly? 0. They thought humans would just keep working for scraps forever. Sora considered this. What will happen to those beacons now? They will fail, Tewu said bluntly. And pirates will move in. And trade ships will get lost. And maybe, just maybe, the Council will realize that humans were not servants. We were the glue holding their civilization together. Back on Earth, Hana Lee sat in a secure facility deep underground, monitoring the situation across the galaxy. Screens covered every wall, showing news feeds, communication intercepts, and status reports from various sectors. The picture was not pretty. Food riots on 3 Council core worlds, an analyst reported. Their synthesizers were designed by humans. Without maintenance, they are breaking down. 7 sectors have lost all interstellar communication, another analyst added. They are completely isolated. Pirate activity has increased by 300% in the outer territories, a third analyst said. The automated defense networks are offline. Hana took notes, her face expressionless. She had predicted most of this, but seeing it happen was still jarring. Billions of alien beings were suffering because their leaders had been too proud to treat humans fairly. Her assistant, a young man named Kyung, looked troubled. Should we help? Some of those distress calls are from civilian stations, children, hospitals. We will help, Hana said calmly. After the Council apologizes. After they agree to new terms. After they understand that we are not their servants. And if they do not apologize? Hana looked at the screens showing starving aliens and darkened stations. Then they will learn a very hard lesson about what happens when you take people for granted. On the Galactic Council station, emergency meetings ran day and night. Councillor Vextor had not slept in 3 days. His scales were dull and gray and his hands shook as he read report after report. The medical crisis is spreading, an aide reported. 17 plagues that were under control are now active again. The human doctors took all their equipment and knowledge. The economic collapse is accelerating, another aide added. Trade has decreased by 60%. Navigation is nearly impossible without the human beacon network. And the communication problem? Vextor asked weakly. Getting worse. At this rate, half the galaxy will be isolated within a month. Vextor wanted to rage. He wanted to blame the humans for being petty and cruel, but deep down, in a place he did not want to examine too closely, he knew this was his fault. The Council's fault. They had pushed too hard. They had taken too much. They had forgotten that even small species can choose to walk away. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them we are willing to negotiate. The communication officer, a jellyfish-like creature, made an apologetic sound. Sir, we cannot. The quantum communication network was human-built. It is not working. Vextor stared at him. Then send a ship. We have tried. Earth's defense perimeter is not allowing anyone through. The counselor slumped in his chair. For the first time in his long life, he felt powerless. Humanity had left, and they had taken the modern galaxy with them. The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive station built by 100 different species over 1,000 years. Inside the main hall, representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated seats, arranged in circles that rose higher and higher toward the domed ceiling. At the very top sat the Council of Five, the most powerful beings in known space. At the bottom, in the smallest seat, sat Ambassador Jiwon Kim of Earth. She had been sitting there for 3 hours, listening to the council debate about humanity. They spoke about Earth as if humans were not even in the room. They spoke about humanity like parents discussing a disappointing child. Counselor Vextor, a tall reptilian creature with scales that shimmered purple under the lights, raised his clawed hand. The room fell silent. His yellow eyes looked down at Jiwon with something that might have been amusement. The matter is simple, Vextor said, his voice echoing through the chamber. Earth has benefited greatly from council protection for the past century. Now it is time for Earth to pay its fair share. We require 40% of Earth's industrial output, 40% of its food production, and 40% of its technological patents. This is not negotiable. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Other species nodded their various heads, tentacles, and sensory organs. To them, this seemed reasonable. Earth was small, young, and should be grateful for the opportunity to serve. Jiwan stood up slowly. She was a small woman compared to most species in the room, barely reaching the chest height of the average alien. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. She looked tired. She had been tired for a very long time. "Permission to speak," she said clearly. Vextor waved his hand dismissively. "The matter is decided, Ambassador Kim. There is nothing to discuss." "I am not here to discuss," Jiwan replied. Her voice was calm but carried through the chamber. "I am here to deliver Earth's response to your demands." This got their attention. Several counselors leaned forward. They had expected begging, negotiation, or perhaps angry protests. They had not expected calm certainty. Jiwan pulled a small datapad from her pocket. She did not look at it. She had memorized every word weeks ago. "For 103 years, Earth has been a member of the Galactic Council," she began. "In that time, humanity has contributed more to this galaxy than you seem to remember. We gave you quantum communication technology that lets you talk across the galaxy instantly. Before that, your messages took months or years to arrive. We gave you medical advances that cured 17 different plagues across 12 species. We gave you fusion power that runs cleaner and cheaper than anything you had before." She paused, looking around the chamber. Some aliens looked uncomfortable now. They did remember. They just had not thought it mattered. "In return, you have treated us like servants," G1 continued. "You charge us triple taxes compared to other species. You block our ships from 80% of galactic trade routes. You deny our scientists seats in your universities. You prevent our people from owning property on most worlds. And now you want 40% of everything we have." Vextor's scales darkened slightly, a sign of annoyance. "You exaggerate, Ambassador. The Council has been generous to Earth. We protect your borders. We include you in our decisions." "You protect borders we never asked you to protect," Jiwan said, "and you do not include us in decisions. You inform us after you have decided." "There is a difference." She took a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything led to this. Effective immediately, Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council. We are recalling all human diplomats, engineers, doctors, teachers, and workers from Council space. All Earth-owned facilities and technology will be deactivated and removed. We will no longer participate in Council trade, Council law, or Council affairs. This is final. For several seconds, nobody moved. The chamber was so quiet that G1 could hear her own heartbeat. Then Vextor laughed. It was a harsh barking sound. Other counselors joined in, a strange chorus of alien amusement echoing off the walls. "You cannot be serious," Vextor said, still chuckling. "Earth would collapse in a month without Council support. You have nowhere to sell your goods, no allies, no protection from raiders and pirates. You would be alone in a dangerous galaxy." Jiwan smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. "We have been alone this entire time, Counselor. We just did not realize it until now." She tapped her datapad. Across the station in the docking bays, every Earth ship began powering up their engines. The vibration could be felt even in the Council chamber. "What is happening?" someone demanded. "Our ships are leaving," Jiwan said simply. "All of them." "Right now." She turned to walk toward the exit. Behind her, the chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens were shouting, demanding she stop, calling for security. But Jiwan kept walking. Her security team, 4 human soldiers who had been waiting by the door, fell into step around her. Admiral Taeyang Park was waiting at the docking bay. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and the bearing of someone who had spent his entire life in space. He saluted as Jiwan approached. "Ambassador," he said formally, "all personnel are accounted for. We are ready to depart." "Then let's go home, Admiral," Jiwan replied. She boarded the flagship, a sleek vessel named the Defiance. Captain Minho Choi stood on the bridge, his hands moving across the controls with practiced ease. "All ships report ready," Minho announced. "We have 73 vessels from heavy cruisers down to diplomatic shuttles. Everyone who wanted to leave is leaving." "Execute Protocol Exodus," Admiral Taeyang ordered. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. On trading stations, human engineers shut down systems they had built and maintained. On medical facilities, human doctors transferred their patients to alien colleagues and packed their equipment. On research stations, human scientists deleted their personal files and locked down their laboratories. Hannah Lee, Earth's chief intelligence officer, watched from a monitoring station near Mars. Screens showed humans evacuating from 1,000 different locations. It was the largest coordinated withdrawal in history. "We are burning a lot of bridges," her assistant said nervously. "We never had bridges," Hannah replied. "We had chains." "There is a difference." Back in the council chamber, Councillor Vextor was receiving reports. His confidence was fading with each message. "Sir, the communication relay in Sector 7 just went dark. The medical facility on Taurus Prime has lost all its diagnostic equipment. The trade station at Junction Hub reports total power failure." Vextor's scales had gone completely pale. "What is happening?" An aide, a small furry creature, looked up from his datapad with wide eyes. "Sir, every piece of human-built technology across the galaxy has just shut down. The humans put kill switches in everything. Without their codes, nothing works." The counselor stared at the empty seat where Jiwon had sat for 3 years, the small, unimportant seat at the bottom of the chamber. "This is impossible," he whispered. But it was not impossible. It was happening. Across the galaxy, lights went out, machines stopped working, and communication networks fell silent. Earth had left, and the galaxy was already feeling it. The emergency council session had been going for 12 hours, and tempers were rising. Councillor Vextor stood at the center of the chamber, looking older and more tired than anyone had ever seen him. Around him, representatives from 100 species shouted demands and accusations. "My people are starving," screamed Chancellor Morath, a bird-like creature whose feathers were falling out from stress. "Our food synthesizers have failed completely. We have 3 weeks before mass starvation begins." "My systems have no communication," growled another counselor, a bear-like creature with purple fur. "We are blind and deaf. Pirates are raiding our outer colonies, and we cannot even send warnings." "The humans did this deliberately," Vextor insisted, trying to maintain some authority. "They sabotaged their own technology before leaving. This is an act of war. This is an act of survival," a small voice said from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned. Speaker Yara, an elderly creature from a species that looked like floating crystals, drifted forward. She was one of the oldest beings in the council and usually stayed quiet during debates. "The humans did not sabotage anything," Yara continued in her thin, reedy voice. "They simply stopped maintaining it. All of their technology required regular updates, adjustments, and repairs. We knew this. We just assumed they would keep doing it forever, regardless of how we treated them." "We treated them fairly," Vextor protested weakly. "We treated them like tools," Yara replied. "And now we are learning what happens when your tools decide they have had enough." Before Vextor could respond, an aide rushed into the chamber. "Counselor, we have ships approaching Earth's border. 4 diplomatic vessels. They are requesting permission to speak with Earth's government." "Finally," Vextor said with relief. "Inform them that I will lead the negotiations personally." At Earth's border, in a defensive station that orbited just outside Mars, Security Chief Hyunwoo Jang watched the approaching ships on his monitors. He was a stocky man with short black hair and a permanent frown. He had spent 20 years dealing with alien bureaucracy, and he was enjoying not having to be polite anymore. 4 council ships, his second-in-command reported. "They are broadcasting diplomatic codes and requesting a meeting with our leadership." "Denied," Hyunwoo said flatly. "Sir, they are saying it is urgent. They claim billions of lives are at stake." "I am sure they are," Hyunwoo replied without sympathy. "Send them the standard message." His officer pressed a button. A recorded message began broadcasting toward the council ships. It was President Borishin's voice, calm and professional. "Attention council vessels. Earth is no longer a member of the Galactic Council. We have no diplomatic relations with your government. If you wish to open formal negotiations for a new relationship based on equality and mutual respect, you may submit a written proposal through the neutral Vrin embassy. Any vessels attempting to cross Earth's defensive perimeter will be treated as hostile. This is your only warning." The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. "They are not leaving," the officer reported. "One ship is moving closer to the border." Hyunwoo sighed. There was always one who thought the rules did not apply to them. Disable their engines. Non-lethal. Earth's defense platforms fired. Blue bolts of energy struck the approaching ship, overloading its power systems without causing any explosions. The vessel went dark and began drifting. The other 3 ships are retreating rapidly, the officer said with a small smile. Good, Hyunwoo replied. Send a rescue tug to help the disabled ship, but escort them out of our space afterward, and send them a repair bill. On one of the retreating council ships, Counselor Vexter watched Earth's defense platforms with growing horror. Those weapons had been hidden. The Council had always assumed Earth's military was small and primitive. They had been wrong. How many of those platforms do they have? He demanded. We count at least 50 around Mars alone, his tactical officer replied. And there are probably more we cannot see. Sir, their weapons technology is far more advanced than our intelligence reports indicated. Vextor felt cold. You are saying, if we tried to force them back into the Council, we would lose, the tactical officer said bluntly. Badly. Back on Earth in the capital city, President Bora Shin sat in her office reviewing reports. She was a tall woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been mayor, then governor, then president, and she had spent her entire political career dealing with the Council's disrespect. Now she had the satisfaction of ignoring them completely. Ambassador Yeren Kwan entered the office. She had been Earth's second ambassador to the Council, working under Ji-won Kim. She was younger, angrier, and had even less patience for alien excuses. The Council ships have retreated, Yeren reported. We disabled one that got too close, no casualties, but they got the message. Good, Bora said. What about the written proposals I requested? So far, we have received 17, Yeren said, pulling up a data pad. Most are insults. They offer us minor trade concessions if we restart their infrastructure. One actually suggested we send engineers as temporary workers until they can train their own people. Bora laughed bitterly. Temporary workers, they mean slaves. Essentially, yes, Yeren agreed. There are 2 proposals that seem genuine. The Vrin Federation and the Keltur Union. Both are offering equal partnership agreements. No tribute demands, no special taxes. Actual trade deals where both sides benefit. The Vrin and Keltar were always the decent ones, Bora remembered. They voted against most of the Council's worst policies. All right, we can negotiate with them. But carefully. I want everything in writing, with human lawyers reviewing every word. Understood, Yeren said. She hesitated, then added, Madam President, some of our people are concerned. The news reports show aliens suffering, starving children, hospitals without power. Some of our citizens are asking if we are being too harsh. Bora looked out the window at the city below. Earth looked beautiful from up here. Clean, safe, prosperous. It had not always been this way. Humanity had clawed its way up from wars and disasters and near-extinction events. They had learned hard lessons about survival. Tell me, Yeren, she said quietly. When we first joined the Council, we offered to share our medical technology freely. What did they say? They said we should sell it to them at triple the usual research fees. When we offered to help design better food synthesizers, what did they say? They said we could build them, but we would not get credit for the designs. When our scientists asked to attend their universities, what did they say? They said humans were not academically qualified, despite our test scores being higher than most species. Bora turned back to face her ambassador. For a century, we tried to help. We tried to be partners. They treated us like servants. Now they are suffering consequences of their own choices, and they want us to save them without changing anything. The answer is no. Not until they learn this lesson. What if they do not learn? Yeren asked. What if their pride kills them? Then the galaxy will be smaller, Bora said coldly, but it will be more fair. Across Earth, similar conversations were happening. In restaurants and homes, on street corners and in office buildings, humans debated their planet's new isolation. Some felt guilty about the suffering aliens. Others felt vindicated after years of poor treatment. Most felt conflicted. Captain Sung-Ho Oh commanded a border patrol ship called the Vigilant. He sat in the mess hall with his crew, listening to them argue about Earth's decision. "We should help them," insisted Lieutenant Ara, a young woman who had trained as a disaster relief specialist. "People are dying." "People were already dying when the Council ignored our proposals for better safety standards," countered Engineer Suyuk, an older man with burn scars on his hands. "I worked on station construction. I saw aliens die because the Council refused to implement human safety recommendations. They said our standards were too expensive, too complicated. Now those same standards could save them, and they still will not listen." "But children," Ara protested. "Children did not make these decisions." "Neither did we," Sung-Ho said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "Earth's children also suffer when our resources are drained by unfair tribute demands. Earth's parents also die when we cannot afford the best medicine, because the Council taxes us triple. We have been suffering for a century. The difference is nobody cared because we were small and unimportant." He stood up, looking at each crew member. "If the Council comes to us with genuine respect, genuine equality, genuine partnership, we will help rebuild everything, but not before. They have to learn that we are not their servants. We are not their backup plan. We are a civilization that deserves respect, and if they cannot give us that, then they do not deserve our help." The crew was silent, thinking about his words. Meanwhile, Counselor Vextor received the worst news yet. An aide rushed in, all forearms trembling. "Sir, long-range sensors have detected movement in the outer darkness. It is the Vorgath swarm." Vextor felt his heart stop. The Vorgath swarm was an ancient enemy, a species of insect-like creatures that consumed entire worlds. The Council had fought them off decades ago, but only barely. The swarm had retreated to nurse their wounds. Now they were coming back, and the Council's defenses were crippled without human communication networks and maintenance. The Vorgath swarm moved through space like a plague of locusts. Millions of bioships, each grown rather than built, each hungry for resources and expansion. Their advanced scouts had detected the Council's weakness, and now the main fleet was coming. In Earth's intelligence headquarters, Junho Bayek stared at the sensor data with growing concern. He was a thin man with glasses and a habit of chewing his pen when worried. Right now he was chewing so hard the pen cap was coming off. "This is bad," he muttered. "This is really bad." His supervisor, Director Hana Lee, came to stand beside him. "How bad?" "The swarm has 3 full hive fleets moving toward Council space," Junho explained, pointing at the holographic display. "That is approximately 8 million combat ships. The Council's defense network could barely handle 1 hive fleet when it was working properly. Now, with all the human-built communication and coordination systems offline, they will not last a week. That is not our problem anymore," Hana said, but her voice lacked conviction. "It will become our problem," Junho argued. "If the swarm takes Council space, Earth is next. We share a border with the Krylon sector. That is one of the first sectors in the swarm's path. Once they finish with the Council, we will be looking at an invasion force we cannot stop alone." Hana was quiet for a moment. She had spent months planning Earth's withdrawal, making sure humanity would be safe and independent. She had not planned for this. "Get me the president," she finally said. In the Council's military command center, General Min Jae Kang of Earth was still at his post, even though Earth had withdrawn. He was a tall man with a scarred face and the bearing of someone who had fought in actual battles, not just simulated ones. He had stayed behind as an observer, watching how the Council handled crises without human support. The answer was, not well. "We need to coordinate our fleets," a Council admiral was shouting at the tactical display. He was a squid-like creature with tentacles waving in agitation. "Third Fleet needs to reinforce Second Fleet at Junction Delta." "We cannot contact Third Fleet," another officer replied. "The communication relay is down. Then send a courier ship. That will take 6 days. The swarm will reach Junction Delta in 3 days. Then Second Fleet must hold alone. Second Fleet has no idea the swarm is coming," another officer pointed out. "Their long-range sensors were human-built. They are operating blind." Minjae watched this disaster unfold with a mixture of pity and frustration. The Council military had relied on human-built infrastructure so completely that they had forgotten how to fight without it. They were like soldiers who had gotten used to having maps, radios, and satellite intelligence, suddenly finding themselves lost in the dark with no way to communicate. His personal communicator buzzed. It was Earth's encrypted channel, still working perfectly because humans knew how to build systems that actually functioned. General Kang, President Bora Shin's voice came through clearly. What is your assessment of the situation? The Council will lose, Madam President, Minjay replied bluntly. Their forces are superior in numbers, but without coordination, they will be defeated piecemeal. The swarm is not sophisticated, but they are relentless. They will simply overwhelm each isolated Council fleet one by one. And if the Council falls, Earth is next, Minjay said. The swarm does not negotiate. They do not stop. They consume everything in their path. We can probably hold them off for a while, but we will be fighting alone against millions of ships. Eventually, we will lose. There was silence on the line. Then stand by, General. I need to make some calls. Across Earth, emergency meetings were taking place. In the military headquarters, Admiral Taeyang Park briefed his officers on the situation. In the diplomatic corps, Ambassador Juan Kim contacted the few alien species that had always treated humanity fairly. In Parliament, politicians argued about whether Earth had a responsibility to help species that had treated them so poorly. Combat pilot Yoonji Park sat in the briefing room with her squadron, listening to their commander explain the Vorgath threat. She was a small woman with quick reflexes and a reputation for crazy maneuvers that somehow always worked. So let me get this straight, she said when the briefing ended. The Council is about to be destroyed. If they fall, the swarm comes for us. But the Council treated us like trash for a century, and now we are supposed to decide if we save them? That is correct, Lieutenant, the commander confirmed. Yoonji looked around at her fellow pilots. They were young mostly, and they had all grown up hearing stories about Council arrogance and human suffering. But they were also soldiers. They had sworn to protect Earth and humanity. I say we fight, Yoonji said suddenly. What? Several pilots exclaimed. Not for the Council, Yoonji clarified. For us. For Earth. Because if we sit here and let the swarm win, we will have to fight them anyway. Better to fight them now while we have potential allies, even if those allies are jerks. Another pilot, Chunho, nodded slowly. She has a point. We do not have to like the Council. We just have to not die. Plus, Yoonji added with a fierce grin, imagine the look on their faces when we show up to save them, after they said we were weak and useless. After they said we needed their protection. I want to see that, the squadron voted. Every single pilot voted to fight. Not for the Council, for Earth. And maybe, a little bit, for the satisfaction of proving the Council wrong. Similar votes were happening across Earth's military. In ship after ship, soldiers and sailors made the same choice. They would fight. Not because they forgave the Council, but because Earth's survival depended on it. President Bora Shin received the reports. The military wanted to fight. The intelligence services recommended it. Even the diplomatic corps, still angry at the Council, admitted it was the logical choice. She called a meeting of her cabinet. Ambassador Yerin Kwan, General Minjay Kang via video link, Admiral Taeyang Park, Director Hana Lee, and a dozen other senior officials gathered in the secure conference room. We all know why we are here, Bora began. The Vorgath swarm is coming. If the Council falls, we are next. The question is not whether to fight. The question is how we fight and what we demand in return. We should demand everything, Yerin said immediately. Full equal status in any new government. Veto power over major decisions. Fair trade, fair taxes, and a formal apology for a century of mistreatment. They will never agree to that, someone objected. Then let them fight the swarm alone, Yerin shot back. We hold all the cards. They need us. We do not need them. At least not as much as they need us. Admiral Taeyang leaned forward. If we are going to fight, we need to do it properly. No half measures. I propose we send the full First Fleet. 500 heavy warships plus support vessels. We hit the swarm hard and fast before they establish a foothold in Council space. That is a massive commitment, someone worried. If we lose those ships, Earth's defense will be crippled. If we do not commit them, the swarm will eventually overwhelm us anyway, the Admiral countered. This is our best chance. We fight now with allies, or we fight later alone. General Minjay spoke from the video screen. I have been watching the Council's military response. They have numbers and firepower, but no coordination. If Earth provides the command structure, the communication network, and the tactical planning, we can actually win this. But they have to follow our lead. No council oversight, no committee decisions. They give us operational command or we do not help. Bora considered everything she had heard. It was a gamble. A huge gamble, but sometimes the biggest risk was doing nothing. All right, she said finally. We will help. But on our terms. Yeren draft a proposal. Earth will provide military assistance against the Vorgath swarm. In exchange, the Council agrees to disband and reform as the Galactic Alliance of Equals. Every species gets equal representation. No tribute, no special taxes, trade based on fair market value, and human commanders have full operational authority over the combined fleet during the crisis. They will never agree, someone said again. Then billions of them will die, Bora replied coldly. Their choice. The proposal was transmitted to the Council through the one working long-range communication system, the human one. It arrived at the Council station and was immediately brought to Councillor Vextor. He read it 3 times. Then he slumped in his chair. This is humiliating, he whispered. They are demanding we dismantle the entire Council structure. They want command of our military. They want to be equals. We will all be dead if we refuse, his aide pointed out. The swarm will not negotiate. They will not show mercy. At least the humans are giving us a choice. Vextor thought about his long career. The power he had wielded. The respect he had commanded. All of it meaningless now. All of it foolish pride that had led to this moment. Send the reply, he said quietly. We accept their terms. All of them. Across Earth, military bases erupted in activity. The first fleet began launching from orbital docks. 500 warships, the most powerful fleet Earth had ever assembled, began moving toward the battle zone. On the bridge of the flagship Defiance, Admiral Taeyang Park looked at the tactical display. Behind his fleet, Earth glowed blue and green. Ahead, the darkness of space where millions of swarm ships waited. This is it, he said to his crew. Everything we have trained for. Everything we have built toward. Today, humanity shows the galaxy what we are really capable of. Captain Minho Choi, standing at the Krylon sector, was the first to fall. 3 Council fleets had tried to hold the line, but without communication or coordination, they had been destroyed in 12 hours. Now the Vorgath swarm was spreading through Council space like spilled ink on paper. Consuming everything, Admiral Taeyang Park stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the tactical display update in real time. His fleet had arrived at the staging area, and now they were seeing the true size of the enemy force. 8 million swarm ships confirmed, the sensor officer reported, spread across 3 main hive fleets. They are moving in a standard consumption pattern, stripping resources from every system they pass through. Council forces, Taeyang asked, scattered and disorganized. We count approximately 2 million ships total, but they are in dozens of separate groups. No unified command. Most are just trying to defend their home systems. Taeyang turned to the communication station. Get me all Council military commanders. Priority override. Tell them this message comes from Earth Fleet Command and they need to listen right now. Within minutes, dozens of alien faces appeared on screens around the bridge. Some looked hopeful. Some looked angry. Most looked desperate. I am Admiral Taeyang Park of the Earth Defense Forces, he began without preamble. Your council has agreed to give Earth operational command of all military forces for the duration of this crisis. That means you now take orders from me. If anyone has a problem with that, speak now. Several aliens started to object, but a familiar face cut them off. General Min-jae Kang appeared on the largest screen, his uniform identifying him as Council Military Liaison. I suggest you listen, Min-jae said firmly to the other commanders. The Admiral and his fleet are the only chance you have of surviving this. Your pride got you into this mess. Your cooperation might get you out. One by one, the alien commanders reluctantly nodded agreement. Good, Taeyang said. First order. All ships are to retreat to the following coordinates. We are establishing 3 defensive lines. Second order. All human-built equipment on your ships is being remotely reactivated. You will have communication and sensor capability again. Use it. Third order. Stop trying to defend individual systems. We cannot save everyone. We save who we can. And we hurt the swarm badly enough that they think twice about continuing. You are abandoning billions of civilians, one alien admiral protested. Yes, Taeyang replied bluntly, because trying to save everyone means losing everyone. We establish strong defensive positions. We inflict maximum casualties on the swarm, and we force them to decide whether continuing the attack is worth the cost. That is how you fight an enemy that outnumbers you 4-1. The alien fell silent, looking sick. Captain Suman Hong was leading Earth's ground forces on a council colony world called Talon Prime. She was a stocky woman with close-cropped hair and a no-nonsense attitude. Her job was to evacuate as many civilians as possible before the swarm arrived. "How many shuttles do we have?" she asked her team. 20, her second-in-command replied. "Capacity is about 5,000 people total. The colony has 200,000. Suman felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. Anger was useless right now. "Then we say 5,000. Prioritize children, medical personnel, and engineers. Move fast. We have 4 hours before swarm scouts arrive." The evacuation was chaos. Aliens pushing and shoving, desperate to get on the shuttles. Children crying, parents begging. Suman's soldiers maintained order as best they could, but it was heartbreaking work. A tall alien, some kind of lizard creature, grabbed Suman's arm. "Please, my daughter, she is only 6 years old, please." Suman looked at the child clinging to the alien's leg. She thought about her own niece back on Earth, the same age. She nodded to one of her soldiers. "Get them on Shuttle 7. Captain, we are over capacity on that shuttle," the soldier protested. "Then make room," Suman said harshly. "Move." They saved 5,300 people that day. They left 194,700 to die. Suman knew she would remember every single face for the rest of her life. In orbit above a different colony world, combat pilot Yoonji Park was having the time of her life. Her fighter squadron had engaged a swarm advanced scout group, and she was dancing her ship through enemy fire like she was performing ballet. "Yoonji, you have 3 on your tail," her wingman called out. "I know," Yoonji replied calmly. She spun her fighter in a corkscrew pattern that should have been impossible, the G-forces pressing her into her seat. The swarm ships tried to follow but crashed into each other. "Make that 0 on my tail." Her weapons officer laughed despite the tension. "You are insane." "I am effective," Yoonji corrected. "There is a difference. Go squadron, form up on me. We are going to hit their command ship." "That ship is 3 times our size," someone objected. "Then we will have to hit it 3 times as hard," Yoonji replied. "Follow my lead and do not die. Those are your only 2 jobs." They streaked toward the swarm command vessel, 20 small fighters against a massive bioship bristling with weapons. But Earth's fighters were fast and their pilots were trained to think creatively. They split into 3 groups, attacked from different angles simultaneously, and concentrated all their fire on the command ship's sensory organs. The massive vessel shuddered and went blind. Without its guidance, the other swarm ships became confused and disorganized. Other council forces swept in and destroyed them while they were vulnerable. "Ghost leader to all units," Yoonji broadcast. "That is how you take down something bigger than you. Speed, surprise, and hitting them where it hurts." "Any questions?" There were no questions. Just respect from alien pilots who were learning that humans understood war in ways they did not. Back on the Defiance, Ambassador Ji-won Kim had returned to oversee diplomatic aspects of the crisis. She stood beside Admiral Tae-yang watching the battle displays. "The first defensive line is holding," the Admiral reported. "Casualties are high, but the swarm advance has stopped. They are regrouping." "How long until they attack again?" Ji-won asked. 6 hours. "Maybe 8, Ji-won looked at the numbers. 20,000 ships destroyed, 40,000 damaged, and they had only stopped 1 hive fleet. 2 more were still advancing through different sectors. "We need more forces," she said. "We need the council forces to actually fight effectively," Tae-yang replied. "They have the numbers. They just do not have the discipline or coordination." Medical officer Yuna Choi was working in a field hospital near the front lines. She had set up in an abandoned station, and wounded from a dozen species were flooding in. Her staff was overwhelmed. "We need more beds," a nurse called out. "We need more everything," Yuna replied, her hands moving quickly as she stabilized a wounded insect-like soldier. "Do what you can with what we have." A council medical officer approached her, a being made of what looked like living crystal. "Your techniques are remarkable. The way you stabilize trauma patients, the efficiency of your triage system. Where did you learn this?" "Earth," Yuna replied simply. "We have had a lot of practice. Wars, disasters, accidents. Humans have been patching each other up for thousands of years. Will you teach us?" Yuna looked up from her patient. The crystal being seemed genuinely curious, genuinely respectful. It was the first time an alien had asked to learn from her, rather than just demanding she do the work. After this is over, if we survive, yes, Yuna said. I will teach you everything I know. The second defensive line was established in the Helios sector. Admiral Taeyang placed his flagship at the center of the formation, with council ships arranged in a careful pattern around it. Every ship was now connected to Earth's communication network. Every captain could hear his orders instantly. This is where we make our stand, Taeyang broadcast to the entire fleet. Behind us are 36 populated systems. If we fall, billions die. The swarm thinks we are weak and divided. Let us show them what a united fleet can do. The swarm's second hive fleet arrived in a wave of bioships, their organic hulls pulsing with strange light. There were 3 million of them, and they came at the defensive line like a tidal wave. All ships hold formation, Taeyang ordered. Wait for my mark. Wait for it. The swarm ships came closer, closer. Some council captains were panicking, wanting to break formation and engage early, but they held, trusting the human admiral. Now, Taeyang said calmly, all ships fire. The defensive line erupted in concentrated fire, thousands of weapons firing simultaneously at specific targets that Earth's computers had identified. Swarm ships exploded by the hundreds, their formation disrupted. Second wave, fire, Taeyang continued. Third wave, fire. It was like watching a perfectly choreographed dance of destruction. Every shot calculated, every movement planned. The swarm had never faced this kind of coordinated defense before. They were used to fighting disorganized opponents. This was different, but there were so many of them. For every swarm ship destroyed, 10 more pushed forward. The defensive line began to buckle. Reinforce Sector 7, Taeyang ordered. Redirect power from shields to weapons. We cannot defend forever. We have to hurt them enough that they retreat. Captain Minho Choi was managing the Defiance's weapon systems personally. Admiral, if we redirect power, we are vulnerable. Then do not.